Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, June 26, 2020. How to compel your members of Congress to answer you. The Pew Research Center sets forth some interesting data about the number of people represented by each member of the U.S. House of Representatives. In 2018, each member represented approximately 747,000 Americans. Now, in 1789, the U.S. House had only 65 members. The number of members has increased to 435 as states were admitted to the Union and has remained there. Now, there's no constitutional requirement to expand membership in the House as population increases, but the number is set by a law enacted by Congress. By comparison, Germany has 709 members in their lower house. The United Kingdom has 650. Now, the two highest representation ratios in countries belonging to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development are Japan, with one representative for every 272,108 citizens, and Mexico, with one for every 247,965 citizens. Now, the cynical among us believe that many of our U.S. representatives like the idea of having a large number of constituents because it means they will have to interact with just a relatively small percentage of them. This also means that most people will leave them alone because they either feel insignificant or they think it's too difficult to reach their representatives. Members of Congress are constantly assailed by parties trying to get their attention. Now, relatively few of them are actual constituents living in the member's district, but instead, most represent lobbying groups trying to influence national legislation. Now, except for large donors, many ordinary constituents find that there's very limited opportunity to command their representatives' attention. Generally, members of Congress only come back to their districts on weekends and during some congressional recesses, and often that time is consumed with local campaign activity. However, the one thing that U.S. House members never forget is that their re-election every 2 years depends on winning the most votes from their local constituency. They also know that even with all the advantages of being the incumbent, there have been cases where even some of the most powerful members were defeated by opponents who spent as little as 10% of what the powerful incumbents spent on their campaigns. So for this reason, the members of the U.S. House have local offices whose primary job is to show the voters in their district that the member is doing a good job for them. Now let's take a look at a 10-minute-a-week plan that works. Now, most of us feel passionately about the fair tax. We can explain its benefits to our families, friends, and neighbors, and when we do, they almost always agree that the fair tax is a much better way to fund the government than the present income payroll tax system. However, most of us have jobs or other family obligations that take our time, and few of us are financially able to make political contributions large enough to ensure that we have our representatives' attention. Now, you want to help push the fair tax forward, but you just don't see a way to do it effectively. Well, maybe you send an email or a letter to your representative. Well, this almost always results in you getting back a form letter which thanks you for your interest and assures you that the member appreciates your input and will keep your thoughts on the issue in mind. Maybe you post a question on the member's Facebook page. However, the likelihood that your representative will actually see and respond to your question is very low. First, there's the sheer volume of posts, and second, all members of Congress have staffers who handle this kind of communication for them. As Senator Russell Long told me in the 1990s, if you don't have a lot of money to wave in front of your representative, then create a situation where he or she will have to address your concerns just to shut you up. Yes, they can ignore emails, social media, and even letters, but they have not yet found a way to ignore a phone call if you're persistent. Here are the simple steps. Get the local office number for your U.S. House member and your 2 U.S. senators. Pick 1 or 2 parts of the fair tax that are important to you. It can be a better way to fund Social Security, or a fairer, more efficient way to collect taxes for the government, or that it will reward hard work and savings, or that it will greatly reduce the tax evasion under the present system. The important thing is that you have one or two selected benefits that you are able to discuss in detail. Then, call the local office and ask to speak to the aide familiar with the member's position on tax issues. When that person comes on the line, introduce yourself and give your address to show that you are a constituent. Then, write down that person's name, any extension, and their email address. Indicate that you are interested in finding out if the member supports the FAIRtax. You can then add that you believe that replacing the current income payroll tax system with a national retail sales tax just makes a lot of sense, and you want to know if your member supports it. If the person asks you why you like the FAIRtax, give them a couple of reasons, but then politely ask again if you can get a response to your question. Generally, they'll tell you that they'll have to get back to you on that, and in that case, thank them and ask when next week you should call back if you have not heard back from them. If no answer by the callback date, call again. Try to get the same person and politely ask again. If they still don't have an answer, then ask when you can expect to get an answer from them. If you can, recruit others to do the same thing. Give them the same person's name to call and ask the same question. Now, if the aide tells you that the member will not support the FAIRtax, ask why and make note of the reason. Now, it really doesn't matter what the objection is, as any objection can almost certainly be addressed and handled. Politely ask if the member would be willing to meet with a FAIRtax representative to discuss possible ways of handling the member's objection by amending the FAIRtax bill. Ask the aide to please speak with the member and see if a 15-minute meeting, either by Zoom or in person, can be arranged. If the member is not willing to meet, send the aide an email confirming that decision, and then post that email as widely as you can to all of the social media and other sites where other voters in the district will see it. If the aide still does not answer the question, call them every week. If they stop taking your call or become rude, then ask to speak to the member's district or state director. Now, if the answer is that the member will consider supporting the FAIRtax, then ask if he or she would be willing to participate in an in-person meeting or a Zoom call to learn more about the FAIRtax and to have any questions answered. Now, always keep notes of your conversations with the member's office so that you can list the calls and the dates on social media and other postings that will reach the member's constituents. If the member's office is not being responsive, try to attend a meeting or event where the member, him or herself, will be present. If you can't go yourself, get a friend to go in your place. Now, have your list of dates and non-responses with you. And then, with everyone else in the meeting watching, document your fruitless efforts to get an answer for the member. Now, he or she will almost certainly claim to be unaware of what was going on in the office and will promise to get you an answer. If possible, ask directly if the member supports the FAIRtax. In conclusion, it's interesting that in this high-tech world, the best tool for FAIRtax advocates who do not have much time but want to help is the telephone. A real person has to answer the call and do something with it. The local office is tasked with providing constituent services to make everyone think that their representative deserves to be sent back to D.C. Now, I've been told by several members of Congress that if they receive calls from even a handful of constituents who are persistent, they often have a staff meeting to craft an answer. Now, we don't need to be rude, but we do need to be persistent if we're going to overcome the pressure from the ruling class and their minions in D.C. Remember, these are the people who don't want any fundamental change made to the income payroll tax system because they're using it quite effectively to reward themselves handsomely. Now, these are also the people who have the money to get your members' attention. So the only way to overcome this financial pressure is to raise the concern that opposing the FAIRtax may put the members' re-election in jeopardy. These members know that a small, energized minority can often change the outcome of an election because often a relatively small number of eligible voters will actually show up and vote. Thomas Jefferson once said, "A majority is one man with courage." Now, all of us can help overcome the influence of the ruling class and their minions in D.C. if we're willing to devote only a few minutes a week. It will take a dedicated effort from all of us to ensure that we get real tax reform, the fair tax, and not the fake tax reform we got in 2017. Without constant pressure from the people, the ruling class and their minions in D.C. will win. They may have the dollars, but we have the votes. So if you're ready to take a very significant step towards wresting control of your government back from a small group of corrupt people and making it possible for all to prosper, go to FAIRtax.org and join us. Then contact your member of Congress and the President and demand that Congress pass the fair tax, the only truly fair tax.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.